My name doesn't matter. What matters is what happened to my family over the past 2 years, and specifically what I saw on a grainy 4-inch camera screen at 11 o'clock. On a Tuesday night that changed how I see my sister forever. Let me start at the beginning, because this story doesn't make sense without it. My mother was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's disease when she was 62 years old. I was 31 at the time. My sister, Dana, was 28. Our dad had passed away 6 years earlier from a heart attack, so it was just the two of us, sitting across from a neurologist in a beige office, listening to words that didn't feel real. Words like progressive and irreversible and care planning. I remember staring at a framed poster of the human brain on the wall and thinking, that's Mom's brain, that thing in. That poster is what's going to take her from us, slowly, piece by piece. We drove home mostly in silence. Dana cried once, briefly, then pressed her lips together and stared out the passenger window for the rest of the drive. That was Dana. She didn't fall apart. She never did. I was always the emotional one. She was always the one who got quiet and then got to work. In the months that followed the diagnosis, Mom was still largely herself. She'd forget where she put her glasses. She'd repeat a story she told 20 minutes before. She'd occasionally call me by my dad's name, which cracked me open every single time. But she could still cook. She still laughed at her shows. She still called Dana every Sunday morning and talked for 45 minutes about nothing in particular. Those calls meant everything to both of them. But by the end of that first year, things shifted. The forgetting got heavier. She left the stove on twice. She got confused at the grocery store and couldn't remember how to get home, even though she'd lived in the same neighborhood for 27 years. Her doctor sat us down again and used a different set of words this time. Words like supervision and transition and level of care. Dana and I had a long, hard conversation. Mom couldn't live alone anymore. We had two options, a memory care facility, or one of us moves in. Dana didn't even hesitate. I'll move in with her. She said, I work remotely. It makes sense. I want to be honest about something here, because this story won't mean anything if I'm not. I was relieved. I am not proud of that. I have a wife, 2 kids, a mortgage, a commute. My life was full in the way that makes difficult decisions easier to sidestep. Dana's life, at the time, was simpler. No kids, a remote job, a small apartment lease that was almost up, so when she offered, I accepted too quickly. I told myself it was logical. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I would help as much as I could from a distance. I called every week. I visited once a month, sometimes every 6 weeks. I sent money when Dana asked and sometimes when she didn't. I thought I was doing my part. I thought we had a system. What I didn't understand, what I couldn't understand from 30 miles away, was what Dana's days actually looked like. About 8 months into Dana living with Mom, I installed a small indoor camera system. This was partly for safety, so we could check on Mom if something seemed off, and partly because Dana had mentioned quietly and without complaint that Mom had started getting up in the middle of the night, confused, sometimes frightened. I told myself the cameras were for peace of mind. Looking back, they were for my peace of mind, not Dana's. I didn't watch the footage very often. I check in occasionally if Dana mentioned something happened or if I was worried after a phone call where Mom seemed particularly disoriented. But one Tuesday night in February, I couldn't sleep. It was close to 11. My wife was asleep beside me and the house was quiet and, for some reason, I just picked up my phone and opened the camera app. The kitchen feed was the one that was always clearest. Good lighting, wide angle. I clicked on it and there was Dana. It was 2:17 in the morning. According to the timestamp, she was sitting at the kitchen table in an oversized sweatshirt, her hair pulled back in the messy way she always wears it when she's not trying. In front of her was a cup of tea, half empty, and across from her Wrapped in her old blue robe was Mom. Mom was talking. I couldn't hear audio. We had it disabled for privacy reasons, but I could see her hands moving the way they do when she's telling a story. Her eyes were lit up with that particular animation she gets when a memory surfaces clearly. Dana had both elbows on the table, her chin resting in her hands, and she was watching. Mom with this expression on her face that I can barely describe. It was not tired. It was not dutiful. It was completely, genuinely present. She was smiling, not the polite smile you give someone when you're humoring them, but the real one. The one that reaches the eyes. They sat there together for 40 minutes. I watched the whole thing. At some point, Mom reached across the table and patted Dana's hand. Dana turned her hand over and held Mom's, and they just stayed like that for a while. Eventually, Dana got up and warmed Mom's tea in the microwave and then guided her back down the hallway toward her bedroom. The kitchen was empty for a few seconds. Then Dana came back, alone, sat down at the table, and put her head in her hands. She wasn't crying that I could tell. She was just, still, exhausted in the way that goes all the way to the bone. She sat like that for a long time. I put down my phone and lay there in the dark for what felt like an hour. I thought about all the Sunday mornings I had called Dana and asked, "How's everything going?" And she had said, "It's okay, we're managing." And I had said, "Okay, great. Let me know if you need anything," and hung up to go watch football or take my kids to the park. I thought about the number of times Mom had probably gotten up in the middle of the night and Dana had gotten up too, without complaining, without documenting it, without once making me feel like I was failing her. I thought about what it costs a person to do that, night after night, month after month, and never once frame it as a sacrifice. I called Dana the next morning. It was early, before the kids were up. She answered on the second ring, which meant she was already awake, which meant she had probably been up with Mom. I didn't say, "How's everything going?" I said, "I saw the camera footage from last night, the kitchen, 2 a.m. There was a pause. Then she said, "Oh," and I said, "Dana, how long has this been happening?" Another pause, and then, in the smallest voice I have ever heard from my tough, quiet, gets-to-work sister, she said, "Almost every night, for about 4 months. 4 months, every night." And she had not told me because she didn't want me to feel guilty. She said that, exactly that. She said, "I didn't want you to feel bad. You have the kids. You have your stuff. I can handle it." I want every person listening to this right now to sit with that for a second. My sister had been waking up in the middle of the night, almost every single night for 4 months, to sit with our mother who no longer always knew what year it was. And she had stayed quiet about it because she didn't want to burden me. She had made herself invisible so I could stay comfortable. And I had let her. Not on purpose, but I had let her. I drove out that same day. I told my wife I needed to go, and she, without asking a single question, said go. We're fine here. I love her for that. When I got to Mom's house, Dana opened the door and I just hugged her. I don't think we had hugged like that in years, maybe not since Dad's funeral. She held on for a long time, which told me everything I needed to know about how heavy she had been carrying things. We sat down that afternoon and had the real conversation, not the we're managing conversation, the actual one. Dana told me that the nighttime waking had become routine. Mom's brain seemed most alive in those dark, quiet hours. Like the noise and stimulation of daytime confused her, but the stillness of 2 a.m. somehow settled her. Dana had stopped fighting it. Instead of trying to redirect Mom back to bed immediately, she started just sitting with her, making tea, letting her talk. Because she had noticed that if she did that, if she just let Mom be present in whatever memory she was living in, Mom would eventually settle on her own and go back to sleep calmly, peacefully. If she rushed her, there would be fear and resistance and sometimes distress that lasted for hours. Dana had figured that out herself, through trial and error. In the middle of the night, alone. She also told me something that I have thought about every day since. She said that some nights, Mom thinks Dana is her own mother, a woman who has been gone for 30 years. And at first Dana would gently correct her mom. It's me. It's Dana, but she noticed that the correction upset Mom, pulled her out of somewhere warm and safe into a confusion that was frightening. So Dana stopped correcting her. Now, when Mom looks at her at 2 a.m. with soft eyes and says, "I'm so glad you're here," Dana just says, "I'm glad I'm here too, Mom." And she lets her have it. She lets her have the comfort. Because what matters, Dana told me, is not the factual accuracy of the moment. What matters is that Mom feels safe and loved. I have never heard anything wiser in my entire life. Things are different now. I won't pretend I've become a perfect brother or that I've magically balanced everything. My kids still have school. My wife and I still have a life. But I drive out every weekend now. And I stay Saturday night so Dana can sleep through uninterrupted. I've hired a part-time respite aide who comes 3 mornings a week so Dana can leave the house, exercise, see friends, exist as a person outside of a caregiver role. We have a shared calendar now, a real one, where I actually track Mom's appointments and show up to half of them. We have a standing Wednesday night phone call where Dana tells me the truth and I actually listen instead of waiting to hear the word fine. Mom is further along now than she was a year ago. The windows of clarity are shorter. She doesn't always know my name, but she usually knows my face, and most days she knows I love her, and I have decided that is enough to hold on to. Some days are devastating. Some days she laughs at something on TV and sounds exactly like herself, and it feels like a gift that I'm terrified to put down. But here is what I know. Whatever time we have left with her, whatever shape those days take, my mother has not spent a single night alone in her fear. Because of Dana. Because my sister chose, quietly and without fanfare, to get up every single night and sit across a kitchen table and just be there. Not because anyone was watching. Not because she'd be applauded for it. Because it was Mom. Because that's who Dana is. I saw it on a 4-inch screen at 11 o'clock on a Tuesday, and it rearranged something permanent in me. If you have a sibling who is doing the quiet, invisible, thankless work of caring for someone you both love, please don't wait for a camera to show you what's happening. Ask the real questions. Show up before you're needed. Let them put some of it down. The 2 a.m. shift should not belong to one person. And if you're Dana, if you're the one who is currently sitting at a kitchen table in the middle of the night holding someone's hand and you haven't told anyone how tired you are, I see you. I'm sorry it took me so long to look.